Very good evening. Namaste to all. It's a pleasant Monday evening, and we are now live from dentistchannel.online for the Virtual Implant Expo 2020. It's 8th day of the Virtual Implant Expo, and all of your participation has made us really inspired and proud that these sessions are going so successfully, and we have much more power packed sessions in the upcoming days as well. So your participation has been really encouraging for the team Dentist Channel Online. So today, this evening, we are joined with Dr. Arvind. So I'm Dr. Ashwin from Bengaluru, would be moderating this session. First of all, let me welcome our respected speaker, Dr. Arvind sir, and also let me heartily welcome all the dear participants from this country and also across the globe. So welcome to you all. So without wasting much of the time, let me now introduce Dr. Arvind sir for this session. Dr. Arvind is a maxillofacial surgeon who has completed his MDS in oral and maxillofacial surgery and currently working as a reader in Department of Oral and Maxillofacial Surgery in HKES Nijalingappa Institute of Dental Sciences, Gulbarga, Karnataka, India. Also, he is CEO of Dr. Arvind's Dental and Maxillofacial Clinic, Amirpet, Hyderabad, Telangana, India. So, on this juncture, I welcome and also I request you, sir, to take over this session. So, please guide us through your experiences and by sharing your knowledge, let us make this session a successful one. Sir, I hand over this session to you. You may please proceed with the presentation, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashwin. Thank you. So I'll be sharing my screen.
Yes.
Is this okay?
Screen share will begin now, sir.
Yeah. Is this okay now?
Yes, sir. Please click slideshow and continue, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. So first of all, thanks to Dentist Channel Online for this nice thought of organizing a virtual dental implant expo where we can meet our friends and we can see what the various techniques they are doing it in all over the world and in a single roof. This is a very good, I think you have taken up the challenge and you have made it successful. Thank you, Dentist Channel Online. So today, very good evening for everyone. From here in India, it is 7 o'clock, so it's good evening for us. I don't know in abroad for everyone, it's happy day for you. And this is my daughter, so how far we'll go ahead to spend for their smile, right? That's the first thing, right? So today my topic of presentation is bone reformation. So most of them will be thinking, what is this bone reformation? So I'll take you through the presentation. But this is supported by Implant Genesis. So coming to the introduction of this presentation. So the introduction of endosteal implants have brought a revolution in dentistry. So there are many types of these things, implants here. So the main thing is there are many types, endosteal, subperiosteal, transosteal and intramucosal. So, but the main form is the endosteal implants have gained a lot of, concerns about various because of the predictability and outcome. So, but the main thing which happened was the implant supported or implant-borne prosthetic devices which have become the state of art. From then onwards, the endosteal implants have taken over most of the implants like frame and ramus forms. But to receive an endosteal implant, most of them should have a good available bone in terms of height, width and depth. But not all the patients will be having these available bone. So we do a pre-implant surgery before placing an implant or on the day of implant, we do a pre-implant surgery or a peri-implant to increase the peri-implant environment which involves bone augmentation. So this pre-implant surgery is intended not only to correct the deficiencies in height and width, but also to restore and improve the intermaxillary relationship. See, most of the time, the maxillary resorption pattern will be from buccal to palatal, whereas the mandibular relationship, once the teeth is lost, this will be the relationship. That means we are creating a crossbite. So we need to overcome this crossbite also. So this crossbite is also overcome in this bone reformation techniques. So what is bone reformation? Precisely step 1, step 2, and step 3, right? Whenever there is a defect, you do some bone grafting, you achieve some predictable results such that an implant is being properly held in its position in terms of biological factors. So the principal aim is to create a favorable implant site for the placement of endosteal implants of optimal size and position for optimal biomechanical function and aesthetics. But why we have to do this? Because of the residual ridge resorption. You all know it, right? Whenever there is an existing periodontal disease, I don't know how many of them are going to accept this. I might be in trouble after this, but I would rather going for this scaling, root planing, curettage, and doing flap surgery. And at this stage of terminal dentition, I might call it as terminal dentition because of most of them would be a mobile thing. So how long you want to make them survive or make these teeth function for the patient. So instead of this, we can remove those teeth and we can plan for implants. That is what most of them are doing it nowadays successfully. But what are the reasons for residual ridge resorption? You all know once the extraction has happened, there will be a gradual resorption of the bone because of there is no stimulus which is being generated within the bone. Hence, they say that nowadays an average alveolar bone resorption is 1 mm per year. But why is it important and what can go wrong? Suppose if we are doing an immediate extraction and placement of an implant, that is actually an ideal one. Because of the implant to crown ratio will be good. It will be 2:1. This is an ideal thing. But most of the time, people might be, or the patients might be coming to us after some time after the extraction. So there will be some amount of alveolar bone loss. 1:1 is acceptable, but for according to me, it is not acceptable. But the book says that it is acceptable, but this is definitely not acceptable, right? Implant to crown ratio is 1:2, which is opposite. So whenever we leave the patient without any stimulus which is being generated within the bone, so the bone undergoes resorption, and this can happen. So this I term it, we call it as a vertical cantilever. Not only the horizontal cantilevers, the vertical cantilevers are also a dangerous one in terms of the prognosis, in terms of the outcome and long-term results. So what are the methods for prevention? We all know extractions, which don't do in a crude way. Nowadays, they call it as a least traumatic extraction rather than atraumatic because there is nothing word called atraumatic. Use luxators and periotomes and slowly wiggle the tooth out. And socket preservations, adding some bone grafts, artificial materials and membranes to preserve the bone. And immediate placement of implants. Nowadays, many techniques have come like socket shield and all those things and grafting, GBR. So these are the methods of prevention for the alveolar bone loss. But if a patient comes to you like this, no bone, no option. Most of the dentists or most of the implantologists would say no bone, no option. But I say no bone, I have many options to go. So what are the available sources? I created a small algorithm such that it will be easy for the presentation. Ridge expansion and bone grafting procedures. So ridge expansion, you all know what is ridge expansion. You need to split the bone and then you expand the bone and then you place an implant. But I will be mostly speaking about bone grafting. So in bone grafting, I will be talking about artificial substitutes, bone dust or the osseous coagulum, and bone morphogenic proteins such as your PRF and PRP. Top is tooth osteoblast graft, intraoral grafts and extraoral grafts. So this in 2010, when we was doing this, when I started my implantology practice, then my sir came up with this different suction cannula from Osong. So we used to do the implant procedure and we used to use this suction cannula such that whatever bone is there, it should be harvested in this mesh such that we can reuse it as a graft. This is termed as osseous coagulum. So this is a patient who came up with the trauma immediately to us. Just she she had a road traffic accident and she came to our hospital in less than 45 minutes. And we were very happy that this patient came to us directly because we were the nearest trauma center there. So we planned her an immediate implant placement. We directly took her to the OT after 4 hours and then we placed the implants. And then at the time of doing the procedure, we have harvested this, we have used this bone collector to harvest to get the osseous coagulum. And we have mixed some amount of artificial Noah bone putty to it. And then this is the amount of volume which has come. And these are the implants post-operatively. And this is the post-operative results, post-operative after 5 years. And see the levels which have been maintained properly. So this is a small case from here to here. And the next one topic is use of bone morphogenic proteins such as PRF and PRP. I will not be talking about PRP today. Mostly in dentistry, we will be using what is PRF, platelet-rich fibrin. So this was my previous setting. I used to do it for 2,700 RPM for 13 minutes. This was the centrifuge which I was using before they were available here. This I was doing it in 2011 and 12. Then later on, the Joseph Chopran's articles and many machines started coming up. Now my protocol is very simple. It is 1400 RPM for 5 minutes for IPRF. And again, continue it for the next 5 minutes for the APRF. So these are the vacutainers which I use it. And that is the amount of fibrin or snot clot which we get from the PRF. This is a PRF box where we keep the PRF snot clots to make the membranes. So these are the membranes. So this is a case with this patient is an Australian who came to Hyderabad only for the dental treatment. The patient came to me and he said that I need to undergo my 1-2 to be an implant. I was surprised. I was shocked by seeing this. Patient is come with no symptom and he says that I have to go for an 1-2 implant. Then I said, okay, do you have any investigations? Then he showed me his X-ray. In the X-ray, I saw this internal resorption here. Then I said, okay, let us take a scan. So I took a CBCT scan. I could know that there is a lesion there, but surprisingly, the CBCT scan also told me that there is some internal resorption going in into one as well. So our main stream was to extract this tooth and place the implant as palatally as possible such that we can get a good screw retain process. And immediate loading was, requested by the patient because the patient has to roam for the, he came for Hyderabad for tourism. So he needs to roam for the next 7 days and then he has to get back to his flight. So this is a palatally oriented osteotomy. And this is the implant placement. And then after seeing the Don-Siox techniques and all those things, I also developed this technique like puncho. We call it as PRF as puncho now. We punch it and then over the abutment we place, or sometimes on the gingival former we place it. But before that we pack the graft and then we place the membrane over it. So this is how we place it, and then this is the PRF membranes additionally over it. And then the sutures. Most of them would have been asked me that why you haven't used a membrane. This case was done somewhere around in 2014, I guess, or 15, I guess. So at that time, I was not very much into membrane concept. I was using PRF as a membrane and I had some good results. This is one of the case where you can see it. So this tooth, which I have sent it for the biopsy, and in the biopsy, my histopathological department have actually mentioned very good things. And they say that after grossing, they said there is an internal resorption in it. There is an internal resorption. So they said it's a moth-eaten appearance indicating resorption. So which we already know that it's an internal resorption, right? So then this is the abutment which is being placed after a year. And this is the temporary process for the 1-2. And you can see this endodontic therapy was planned for this 2-1, and then we have done an endodontic therapy, and then we have given her Lava 3M crowns. And this is after 1 year when the patient came back, because he's an Australian, he doesn't stay here, he stays in Australia. So when he came back, it was quite good, and quite surprising thing to me was the contour of the gingiva which found was good. So then later on, I have to remove this. I removed this abutment. It was not finished, I understand it. Then I have done this open tray component, impression. And then this is the final process. And this is the gingival contour which was built up. And the abutment, I used to do most of the time cement retained process, but now I have converted myself into most of the time into cement retained, screw retained process. So after a month, this is the scenario. And this patient did not come for the follow-up in the last 3 years. And after 1 month, and top graft, this also I have seen went through the internet to whether we can use the tooth as our own bone graft. So this is called tooth osteoblast graft. So she is my grandmother's cousin. So she's also a grandmother to me. She came to me in this scenario and she said, our teeth are good. I said, no. Then it took me some 20-25 odd days to convince her for the implant surgery. So I took a CBCT scan after 20 days. And then this was my plan. So we have extracted the upper teeth and then we have processed in the sodium hypochlorite and hydrogen peroxide. And then we have placed it in dentin grinder. This is a Cometa Bio dentin grinder, which was available for us at that time. And then this is, there are 2 types of solutions which come with it, which is for cleansing and one is for another. After cleansing, there's one more solution. No one knows the composition of it. So then we usually take the graft and mix it with the PRF to get some sticky bone. And these are the implants which have been placed. And this is the sticky bone which I placed. PRF membrane over it and then closure. And this is the lower implants. Same procedure. And after this is a post-operative OPG, which is a hybrid denture which I have given her for some time. And later on, we have converted this hybrid denture into a permanent process only because she landed up in a myocardial infarction. So she can't attend us frequently. So we have to convert the same hybrid denture there. So from here to here, it's a good, right? Giving a good smile to your grandmother. So next are the intraoral grafts. In this we have chin and the ramus grafts. Chin we have mandibular symphysis and ramus. So mandibular symphysis, bone graft. So this is a clinical presentation. One patient came to me here. He's a young chap, 20-21 years, and he went around some 10 to 12 clinics. No one said that we can't do an implant for him. And I said, after seeing this, yes, we can do some grafting and we can do it, no? So why can't we take a scan? We took a scan and there's a clinical defect, and the scan surprised me very clearly that there was a very big, huge defect. This is the defect, so, but still I planned it that there was a length of 16 to 17 millimeters. So this is the lesion here in the adjacent tooth as well. So this is the 3D. He had a both buccal as well as the palatal defects. He had a both buccal and palatal defects. So what I have planned is, I have planned him a chin graft. I explained the patient that only one way to go for the implant is you need to undergo the grafting. And he accepted for it. I showed him this plan, that the plan will be there and you need to be going for a cap only after more than 6 to 8 months or at least 9 months. So he accepted it, and this is the flap reflection which is done. That's the cyst. And then we removed it. Most of my seniors who have seen this, they said that it might be a residual cyst, and some people say there's a nasopalatine foramen which has been grown up, but still I found it as a cyst only. Then I took a piezo to clean up all the soft tissue there. There's a nasopalatine nerve, and we removed it. And then this is the situation. Then we just go ahead, we have to go ahead with the same plan. So this is the initial drill, and this is the osteotomy, this is the defect. And then we placed an implant. This is a 3.75 into 11.5 implant. And then we have to harvest the graft. So first what I do is I actually prefer taking an PRF. And then this was my previous settings, but nowadays I'm using it at 1400 RPM. So the PRF, one PRF, we slice it to make it as just a small tiny pieces. And these are the chin grafts. I have taken 2 parts. I did not take a single piece because the patient wanted that chin prominence. I said him that chin prominence will not go, but nowadays internet is giving more and more knowledge to the patients rather than we, the doctors, telling to them. So I have been forced to make 2 blocks here, but this was an advantage for me because one, I used it for the buccal, and one I have used it for the palatal. So 1 centimeter each, we have taken it, and I have packed with some amount of artificial graft, and then kept the palatal block and then the buccal block. Over the buccal block, we placed the membranes, PRF membranes. I was only using PRF membranes till 2016. From 2016 onwards, I started using the artificial membranes. So layer sutures, and then, I'm sorry, this is 3.75 into 13 mm implant, which I have placed. And then this is a temporary process, which I gave him a Maryland bridge. And this is the CBCT after a year. You can appreciate a good bone formation, right? Even the thin plate is still, you can see the buccal plate here. So this is how we predict the results. And see, you can still see the plate here. Plate is not resolved because it's a thick cortical plate. And this made us give a good contour to the gingiva as well. And this is after 1 year post-operative, because the patient is a engineering pursuing student. So I did not want to disturb him. So after 1 year, when he came back, then we gave him the final process like this. So next one is the Ramus bone graft. After the Corey's technique, which released out and it went viral, then I thought, why can't we also do one technique of Corey? I have done 2 Ramus grafts, out of which one has been failed. Most of the time is because of the connective tissue, but the one is still under follow-up. So this was an initial scenario situation. So we had only some 8 to 10 millimeters of bone, 7 millimeters in the in the first molar region. So this was the virtual planning, which we have done. And the best part of this scan was it will tell you in which part of the implant is in D1 bone and D2 bone and there is no bone. So based on this, we could know that the volume of the graft to be harvested. So the incision, the same incision, I had extended it backwards onto the ramus, onto the anterior border. And then this was the measurements which we have taken it. And then we need to increase at least 4 to 5 millimeters. So we have went through with the ramus anterior border. And then that's the chunk of the piece which we have harvested it. And then we have split this ramus into 2, and then we have gone ahead with our implant placement. And this is the implant placement. And then we have fixed the 2 blocks there. And then we have placed it over there. And then we have used some artificial bone graft to fill the one. And then we have used some membranes, PRF membranes. And then this is the closure. And this patient is currently under follow-up. We need to see how the results will be. And coming to the maxillary sinus lips, you all know what happens when we extract a tooth. So the maxillary sinus will start pneumatizing, right? So this process of pneumatization is actually a harm to our implantologist, where most of the time the available bone will be very small or very less. So we need to do some adjunctive procedures such as bone grafting or indirect sinus lift or direct sinus lifts. Suppose if I extract this tooth, instead of placing a 5 into 13 mm implant, I have been forced to keep a 5 into 10 mm implant, thereby which I am going to change or alter the crown root or the implant and the crown ratio. So this pneumatization, how can we avoid it, or how can we do it? There is no answer to how avoid it. The only thing is you need to go ahead with some advanced techniques. So there are 2 types. According to many of them, they say direct and indirect, but I actually been inspired by mythology and say that direct is this and indirect is this. My grandmother used to tell me a lot of stories about direct and indirect techniques. So both of them are for the food, right? Though Arjuna has done it for the other sense. But indirect, you usually use the bone condensers where you elevate the sinus indirectly without seeing without under direct vision. And then you push the graft, and then you do some sinus stenting with some of the graft material, and then you place the implants, right? This is a lift which we have done it in somewhere around in 2010. This was done by my sir, Dr. Shekhar Reddy sir. This is his own case. I was just an assistant at that time. I was an MDS aspirant at that time. So this is the defect, and you will be shocked by seeing how many number of implants have been placed. Entire thing was tented, and this is the number of implants which have been placed. And my sir usually believes that more number of implants is more predictability of the results, or more good or good prognosis. So we lost one implant in the healing phase, but we could give them the hybrid denture immediately. And in the healing phase, we lost one implant in the maxilla. This is the final process. And this is the final process with the OPG. You could see the follow-up now. It's 8 years follow-up now. And this patient has recently visited my sir's clinic, and we have the latest X-ray as well of 8 years follow-up. He's still maintaining good bone levels. So direct sinus lift, most of them know what it is, right? It's a direct sinus lift with lateral approach. You create a buccal window over which you either do a trap door, or then you elevate the sinus membrane and then you push the graft and place an implant, right? So this is the amount of available bone left. It's hardly some 3.5 millimeter which was left in the scan. So we have opted for the lateral approach, elevation of flap, a small trapdoor which has been created. The trapdoor has been lifted along with the membrane, and there's a trapdoor. You can see the trapdoor there. And then we have used some Nova bone putty at that time. And then we have used a membrane. This is the era when we started using the membranes now. And he's my own friend, old friend, 10th class friend. So I could try it out on him. And this is the implant placement. And after 6 months, when he returned to us, there was some quite exposure of the implant, but that was good because it actually avoided for me to wait for another week of gingival formo. So you could still see the trapdoor here, and this is the crown which we have given it. But these are the regular cases where we do use a graft and all. What is specific for maxillofacial surgeons, right? I will be discussing about iliac, fibula, rib, and calvarial now. So the most specific one is, most easiest one, or the gold standard one, is the iliac bone graft. So this patient presented to us with bilateral edentulous teeth. So this was his OPG. So you could see it was very thin bone. So what we have done is, we have taken a CBCT scan to assess it. The sinus was paper thin. It's 1 mm, less than 1 mm here. So we have planned for harvesting the iliac bone grafts. And this is the iliac bone. We have harvested it in chunks such that we can place it like books in a shelf, right? So this is the direct sinus lift which we have done. And you can see the blocks going in now. So we have piled it like some books are placed in a cupboard. And then we have fixed those blocks with a screw. And then we have immediately placed the implants on the same day, at the same time itself. And then I always said that my sir believes that he places one more implant extra. So you could see how the graft was being secured with the screws and the implant. And this is the final processes. This was done somewhere in 2011, 9 years back. And rib graft, there were two there were twins there. Both of them have underwent the rib grafting, but both are under follow-up. We did not place the implants yet and the process. So this is the rib graft. We usually harvest the 7th rib. 5th or 7th can be harvested, but my sir usually prefers the 7th rib. And this is the rib. The rib, the advantage is you just cut the outer cortex, you can bend it easily, and you can adapt it over the ridge, over the mandible or to the maxilla. So fibula, this case was done by my colleague Murli Pradeep, and I was his assistant at the time, right? So this patient is a software engineer who comes here, and she had a tumor here in the mandible. So what we have decided is we have to resect it. And the main thing why I'm showing this case is something special was done in this case, just not by doing just a fibula. We have done a double barrel fibula. You can see here, we have done 2 barrels here, such that the crown root ratio can be maintained, right? But here, yes, doing a double barrel fibula on quarter of fibula is only a very huge risk we are attempting. So this is the double barrel fibula, and these were the implants which you have done it. And you could directly imagine the crown root ratio on here and here, right? So now we are going ahead with the double barrel with with the entire layer now.
Yeah, so doctor, that
has been given to her. And this is another case. Why I want to show this case was this patient did not receive the implants yet. She's about to receive. She had an central giant cell granuloma of the mandible. This is her X-ray, central giant cell granuloma. So in this case, we also planned for the resection. And after the resection, we have planned for the fibula graft. But something different was done is we have adapted the fibula right outside and then along with the paddle. And then we have done the analysis. But the most important thing which we have done is see the contour which we could attain.
Can you send me a photograph of the impression so that I can send it to the
This one, we have kept the fibula at
this is
not at the bottom. We have kept it at the middle third such that the crown root ratios will be maintained and we can get a good predictable outcome. This patient is a young female. She presented her that she had an oligodontia, a non-syndromic oligodontia. So she was about to get married. So she did not want any scar on her body. That's the first thing which she kept on our face was this one. But she wanted a fixed teeth. So when we took the scan, it was surprisingly 1 mm on all the sides. So we gave her one option that the only option for you to not to have a scar on your body is calvarial bone graft, and she has actually accepted it. So under general anesthesia, we have posted this case where we have harvested the calvarial bone. You could see the measurement here, it's hardly 1 mm, but after fixing these grafts, harvesting the calvarial graft, we could attain at 8 millimeters on both the sides. And then we have placed the implants after 8 months, and we have placed 5 implants. Yes, 1 implant is lost for us, but the 4 implants, we gave her teeth. This is a teeth, and this is after 8 years. Now she's married and she's having 2 kids. Look at the way the confidence of implants the teeth have changed her face. Now she is more confident enough to talk enough to the people, and now she's moving around in the society confidently. So the main tray of the presentations will be of these 2 cases now. This patient also had a central giant cell granuloma. Remember, she is in teenage, she is just 14 years when she came to our home. And when I saw her clinically, I was surprised. She has some lesion, but why didn't she reported us? Then after seeing it, most of them would have thought that this is a dentigerous cyst, or this might be an dentigerous cyst which has converted into an odontogenic keratocyst or an ameloblastoma, but all of them are wrong because this is not an ameloblastoma. This is a central giant cell granuloma. So before doing the surgery, we have removed the patient's adenoids. Was also being done. The surgery was also being done, and this is the 3D CT scan of the same patient. So why we do a 3D CT scan? Most of them have to make up a stereolithographic model such that we work around that model first, and then later on we can plan our surgeries exactly. So this is a 1:1 ratio printed 3D model where we have planned her a transport distraction. And when we were doing this transport distraction for this patient, she's a young girl of 14 years. I was only thinking that how many cases of transport distraction have been done till date or in the literature. So I started working out. There are not more than 20 cases in all over the world where have been done for the transport distraction. When I was doing this case in 2014 and 13 and 14, I think 14. So I was very much worried. Why can't we go for fibula and all those things? But the patient comes from a village which is almost like 140 kilometers far from Hyderabad, and very poor economic status where we couldn't plan her a fibula. So this was a model surgery which was done, and Dr. Aditya Mohan has helped me a lot in this case. So, and this distractor also is a customized patient-specific distractor which was made from Chennai. And this is a surgical procedure where we have we have removed the tumor, and then we have placed the distractor. So what we have done something different is before removing the tumor only, we have first fixed the distractor such that our position of the 2 ramuses with the in relation to condyle and relation to the symphysis will be fixed. And then we unwind the screws such that we remove the distractor, and then we go ahead with the surgical aspect of resecting the tumor. And then this is the resection of the tumor. After resection, we have planned the distraction cuts. So we have planned in such a way that our posterior teeth, the first molar and the second molar, will become the anterior teeth. So this is the fixation of the distraction device. And this is the sutures which we actually place it nowadays in all the distractions, where the suture has to engage the lower part where the moving part of the distractor arms are there, such that to avoid dehiscence. And this will also give us some pressure or tension-free closure as well. So that's a tension-free closure. And this is the immediate post-operative distractor, the OPG, after placing the distraction. And you can see this X-ray where after the distraction, post-distraction, the molars have become the anteriors. The latency phase of 6 days was given to this patient. After 6 days, we have activated for 52 days. We have activated for her every day 1 mm, quarter turn, I think half turn morning and half turn in the night. I'm sorry, Corona days, right? So half turn in the morning and half turn in the night. We have done it for 52 days. So we have grown almost 52 mm of bone on bilaterally, that is 104 millimeters. And after 6 months, we have waited because the consolidation phase is like how many mm you have increased into number of days before, right? So we have to wait for 4 to 5 months, but we have waited for 6 months such that the ossification of the entire jaw will be done. And then we have removed the distraction device. And because both the segments have been activated, there is no bone formation here. So we have to fix that with a mini plate and with some arch bar, because these teeth were a little bit mobile. I'm worried about those teeth. And because I'm worried about those teeth, we lost this tooth in the post-distraction phase. They became mobile. You could see the segment here. But still, I thought that because we had a very good bone, we can place some implants. So we placed few implants, 4 implants, and we have done it like an all-on 4. This was a process in 2017. My prosthodontist said that there is no occlusal clearance. So this is the maximum which we could do for this patient. I was literally worried about this scenario, but after 2 years, she came for the follow-up. Her occlusion was good. You could see from here to here. I was surprised to see, but I asked her what happened and all those things, but she did not tell me anything. This patient is shy, and we have assessed the situation because she was still in a teenage. So then I took an X-ray of this patient. I was surprised by having this. See, whatever you intend to plan, most of the times will not go in the same way. You could see this, there's a fracture here. Then I asked the patient what exactly happened. Then she said me that her brother has thrown a book at her after the process. She heard a noise, but her jaw was working good, so she didn't come to us. So, but still her facial profile and everything looks good. She's a happy patient, but I am not happy after doing this surgery because I'm not happy with this broken one. So I convinced their parents that we will do one small surgery here. We need to apply a plate here. They did not agree for it because in villages, there is a small belief that if a patient goes many times for the hospital for something, they think that it's not a good thing and it's a bad sign for her. So even during at the time of marriages, I don't know all those things, but still, I always told the patient that whenever you like to get it done, you come here. I'm ready to do it. And this is another case of transport distraction. The previous case was we used 2 vectors there, but here is only a single vector. So this patient has presented to me with a big scar on her neck, and she said she was being operated here for some reasons. Then I took her old reports and I have checked it. This patient had a peripheral giant cell granuloma, so a resection was only the treatment option for her, and the surgeon who has done it a good job there. And then he has placed a recon plate. Now she came that she's hearing some metal noise. So I just took another look onto the OPG. Then I found out that there is a fracture here in the recon plate. So that was the noise. So we immediately ordered her a 3D CT, and on the day of when she went for 3D CT, you can see the change in the position of your recon plate. It got completely fractured and it overrided it. So we immediately went for the model preparation, and this is the 3D model. Nowadays we are printing two types of models. One for the red color, we are using it as a diagnostic model, and for the mock surgery we are using a green, or nowadays many colors are there, pink or ash color or white. So this is a patient specific distractor, again made by our Dr. Aditya, by sitting with the orthodontist and with the surgeons, most of them, and I really need to thank him because he could do the model surgery beforehand, and then he actually adapted the entire thing into the patient's mouth for the results. So this is the surgical procedure which we have done, and this is the same again distractor. The third molar will become the canine place, but during the surgical phase at the time of osteotomy, we nicked the tooth. So I told my HOD that, sir, this happened. He said nothing is going to, nothing to worry. You just go ahead with the distraction. So we went ahead with the distraction, and I think we given her a latency period of 5 days only, and then we have activated it for 38 millimeters. 38 days she was admitted in the hospital, and then this is the post-operative OPG when we were supposed to send her back, and we recalled her after 4.5 months. After 4.5 months, when she came back, this was the phase. So we removed the distractor, but the only thing which happened was there was this kind of lesion which was formed. I was very much frightened because those were my initial days of my practice, and this infection might go into the newly found bone and it could resolve that. So then we have taken a CT scan, contrast CT grad, such that any infection has gone through the bone or what. So, but luckily it is a no for us. That is simply a pressure necrosis which has been caused by this assembly. So what I have decided is to remove the assembly as immediately as possible, and this was the assembly which we removed, and at the same time we removed the tooth as well. And because this is also a joint of one side of an osteotomy to the other, so on the day of this surgery, what I have done is I have prepared some rough margins, placed some PRF, and done the suturing such that these two segments will fuse. Luckily they fused properly, and after distractor removal, this was the OPG where we removed the tooth as well. And the most interesting part is when the resection was done, the nerve was cut, but because of distraction, the nerve also grew. And I have a video of this patient where pre-operatively in 2014 or 2015, she did not have any sensation of her lip on the right side. But in 2020, I don't know, it's not a good year for everyone, but this was a very good year for this girl, where she has regained her lip sensation. That is what CBCT can do, and this is what the the distraction can do, and this is the CBCT planning of the implants, and this is the short implants which we placed of Implant Genesis. And thanks for Implant Genesis because they did not charge anything for this patient, as we are doing it for the academic purpose. And because she is also a teenager, I did not want to give her the final crowns. I gave her the temporary acrylic crowns first initially, and then I gave her the ceramic crowns later on, only for a year, because at the age of 17, I kept her the crowns. So when she reached to 18.5 years, again, I have taken OPG, and then I have changed the crowns because the growth pattern might change. You can see the difference between these crowns and these crowns, right? So this was the final process given to her when she reached at an age of 18 years. And this is the 4-year follow-up. And this is her post-op occlusion. I know there is an anterior open bite, but still she's having teeth to chew now, but her lips are very competent. So this is her before when she came to us 6 years back, and this is how she is. She has regained her weight and she has regained her sensation of lower lip as well. So my main saying is, if at all there is no bone, grow bone like this and give teeth. So you might have thought that I would have charged a lot for this patient. No, absolutely no. All the three surgeries, including the implants and the crowns, entire thing was completed in less than 50,000 rupees for this patient. This patient I have to say this because she is my close friend's driver's daughter. So I have to do this. And whenever there is no bone, don't say that there is no option for implants. You said no bone, there are more number of options. We can grow bone and we can give teeth. So to conclude, the primary stability and success of dental implants depends on the amount of adequate bone volume. And the recent surge in implantology nowadays has put more emphasis on adequate bone volume of number of residual alveolar ridge, so that implant-based rehabilitation is possible. And the maxillofacial surgeons across the globe are now seeing the increased demand for procedures to improve the volume of the alveolar bone and minimizing the alveolar bone loss, preserving what is left and reforming what is left with the available sources remains the main fundamental modalities. The primary goal is to provide the patient with a satisfactory long-term functional and aesthetic implant supported processes. So this is the main saying of the book called Bone Reformation, which is written by Dr. John I. Coward. Let the patient fit the implant, not the implant fit the patient. So you all know Brené Mark, right? Brené Mark says that no one should die with their teeth sitting in glass of water, but my motto for the rest of my life is everyone should live with fixed teeth, irrespective of whether he or she has the jawbones. So acknowledgements. I should thank my HOD, Dr. G.V. Reddy sir, who has been a constant, support for me throughout my career, and till date he gives me a good advices on how to do better things and better presentations and everything. And Dr. Shekhar Reddy sir and Harnath Reddy sir, who are always there as a motivation for me, and the GV sir's own brother Prasad sir is also there. And the mainstay is my department has helped me like to come from down bottom of my career to the top of my career now. And you can reach me on these numbers, and I'm available on the WhatsApp as well. And this is my clinic in Hyderabad where I do my practice in Amirpet. And this is my clinic. I used to do implant genesis courses in Hyderabad, but now I'm not doing courses for the last 2 years, busy with practice. And this is the first time conference where Implant Genesis has organized it in August 13th in 2017. And this is the Indian Health Professional Awards. Then later on, I started lecturing all over India, Chennai, New Delhi, Jaipur implant launch of Implant Genesis Biocon. Then I went to Germany for under Mazen Tamimi. He is my HOD now. The next person after my HOD is Mazen Tamimi. And in IDS, I met many people, and then I was being honored by going with Mazen Tamimi. So, and you all know, he is Dr. Mazen Tamimi, who actually invited me to International Medical College as well. And Telangana AMSH, Telangana State Chapter is always ready for encouraging the budding oral surgeons. This was when I was presenting the same topic in KIMS, IDA Bhubaneswar, Manipur, ISOM Mumbai. I'm the second Indian to present on the main podium after Paresh Kale sir. And this is DDU Dental College in Gujarat, IDA Keda in Gujarat, IDA Baroda, Love Genesis in Chennai and Kerala. And every month we are organizing one basic implantology course in Kerala from the last September onwards, but we stopped it from February because of the corona effect. And thank you Implant Genesis, and thank you IDS and dentistchannel.online. They were the first person who has taken my interview in 2017, and then later on they continued in 2019 as well. Thank you Dentist Channel. You have been a constant supporter for us, and we are the Harley boys. We ride whenever we take time, we go around, and she's my daughter and my wife. So thank you very much. Thank you very much for dentistchannelonline.com for giving me this opportunity. So that's the end of mine. Thank you very much. Any questions? I'm very much open to it.
There's a question from Dr. Rupali. So can you please explain the current protocol for PRF?
Ma'am, it's a very controversial question nowadays you are asking me. Previously, when I wasn't doing any IPRF. I was just preparing the PRF membranes, like 2700 RPM for 13 minutes, and I was placing them as a membranes only. But later on now, there are two types of machines which are actually available. One is the Joseph Chokran's machine, and one more is, I think, one more machine. I'm sorry, I don't remember that. But nowadays, you can order one more from Amazon as well, which is just some 2,000 rupees. So in that, what you can do is, if you can afford it, you can buy a Joseph Chokran's machine, but or else you can keep it for number 2 RPM. That means 2 means 2000 RPM for a period of 3 minutes, and then you can extract the IPRF and again continue the same 2000 RPM for the next 5 minutes. Will give you an A or L PRF, but we are not sure which type of PRF is it. But if you go for the machines, they are already preloaded with the timings, such that if you press IPRF, IPRF is generated. And if you press APRF, APRF is generated. A or L, both are same, ma'am. A is agranulocyte, L is leukocyte. The main thing they say, most of the manufacturers say that the centrifugation machine is important because there should not be any vibrations while it is spinning. If at all there is any vibrations, there is a chance that your fibrin network can be damaged and you might get a less chance of fibrin clot. So currently the Joseph Chokran's method, he only informed it as 700 to 800 RPM for 5 minutes for IPRF. And then later on 1400 RPM for 5 minutes for LPRF. That is it, ma'am. Thank you. I hope I answered it.
Thank you, sir. The next question is from Dr. Sanchita Ghosh. Her question is that at the time of the distraction, will there be complete immobilization?
It's a good question, ma'am. Actually, we are fixing the distraction with the device, right? So immobilization is not mandatory because we are fixing the device to both the segments, okay, which both are movable segments, right? So we are fixing 2 segments and then we are activating the distraction segment. So usually what we do is we activate it quarter turn in the morning, quarter turn in the evening or in the night, such that 1 mm per day. Once the distraction phase is finished, what we do is we give it a consolidation phase. During the consolidation phase also, patient is not immobilized or the jaw is not tightened with your arch bars or with your elastics. The patient will be continuing to eat. Only for the first 7 days to 10 days, we give a nasal feed because we don't want any dehiscence to occur during the latency phase. During the consolidation phase, the patient is with an open, patient can open and he can function his jaw as normally as possible. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you, sir. So the next question is from Dr. Sneha R. Nair. What is the success rate for short implants?
Ma'am, here the short implant which I have placed it is in a distracted mandible. So in that, I could only place a short implant because my length of the distraction was only 8 millimeters, which I could achieve. So I have placed only 6 millimeters implant. Till date, it is doing good. It's been 5 years. 2015, I completed that case. 16, I think I changed her teeth as well. But they are still doing good, ma'am. That means, see, I think the success of implants is not because of the company or the quality or whatever it might be. It actually depends on the surgeon's hand who is doing it. Mainly the implantologist hand. How he has handled the bone properly and how he has respected the soft tissues. These 2 are most important in the success of it, ma'am. Yes, you might be asking that I'm asking only about short implants. Yes, very good. I don't use much of short implants, but I have used the short implants in this case because I have to grow the nerve such that I'm anticipating the lower lip to get its nerve, what do you say, the sensation back. So short implants are good. Most of my friends have done Bicon implants, BICON. So they are used to tap the implants, the abutment into it. Still, it's been 10 years, they are doing good. So short implants should be good, provided if they are fitting into their indications.